At this point, I'd like to take you through GitHub and show you just a little bit about this particular environment. GitHub is also a social coding environment, but GitHub uses more than just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, where CodePen is a community that is geared towards front-end design and development. GitHub is a community of computer scientists who are working on all levels of code, from the front end stuff, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the way through to back end environments like Ruby on Rails or PHP, various other environments, Python, all sorts of things. So there are several repositories of code on this site, and even just taking a cursory look through what's available on here, you can see that there are a ton of different types of things that you can take a look at. So one of the things I'd like to do is just quickly explore some of the things that GitHub actually does. There are various subsets of GitHub that focus on different things. And as you can see from this screen, you have JavaScript game engines that you could play around with, government apps, data visualization tools, web application frameworks, open source organizations, all sorts of things in this environment. And so we can play in this space as well, and we can see what is available here. One of the hotter trends in design is data visualization, so we might as well take a look at some of the data visualization repositories that are out there just briefly. The first one that comes up is a very, very popular one called D3. And D3 uses a combination of HTML and SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. SVG is wonderful. SVG gives us the opportunity to make very slick graphics that move very quickly without many problems whatsoever. And if you want to play around with this and you are just accessing GitHub by yourself, you haven't even established a login or anything like that, what you can do is just take this and download this zip file. And what this zip file is going to have everything that you would need to construct something in D3.js. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this is easy stuff to do. There's a lot of learning that needs to take place, but if you start from the beginning, if you just happen to want to get started with D3 and you want to check out a couple of things, first off, you can go out and check out the wiki that is out here, and this wiki is also hosted on GitHub, so it's there along with this code, and you can take a look through and find out how to install all of these things and work with these things on servers and that sort of stuff. Even if you're working with a developer who knows D3, you can start to go in and say, hey, you know what? I just saw this really cool stacked to group bars graph. I think this would look really good in this story to demonstrate, X, Y, and Z about whatever topic it is that you need to work with. And it has the code right there. So you can even go in and start to play around with all of these things with even just a limited knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Again, I'm not going to lie to you and say that this is easy stuff to get on top of, but I do want to point you to resources that are very well documented and very forward-thinking about how these things will be implemented, so that developers can start to share their knowledge and work with each other on these things. And what's great about this is if you have an issue with any of the code, that it's blocked by content security policy, or I need a feature request for outlines or something like that, the developer is looking at this stuff and can take those requests, files it with a number, and can address those things. And so this developer has 170 open items, which is pretty daunting, but has closed 10 times that amount. So I think this is wonderful. I think this is a way that the coding has become social, and coding has become a type of practice in this industry that is not hidden in some basement or hidden in some office with one sort of developer rock star. It's the type of community that has grown up around the web and really makes the most of the technology at play. The mechanisms for working with GitHub are very similar to what we saw with CodePen. You can fork a particular repository to make it part of your account. So if I want to fork this, I can just click that and I can put it in any of the repositories that I have access to, and I'll put it into my own personal one. It will make me a copy of this D3 environment, and then I can have it to go back to and reference on my own. An added bonus is that I have an application called GitHub installed on my local machine. So as soon as I fire up that application on my local machine, I will be able to see this code and it will download automatically to my computer, and I'll be able to work with it right on there. So again, quick, easy sharing, a social community, a responsive community, a group of people who are attempting to make software better to address all sorts of needs across the web. And GitHub and CodePen are two of the places where they go to not only share code, but learn from each other and build upon what already exists. A third community that I would like to discuss is the community that has built up around doing experiments with Google Chrome. Google Chrome is now the leading browser on the market, primarily because of its use on the Android operating system and due to its popularity, not only being a Google product, but also its forward-thinking stance in the web development community. It is a browser that is quick to adopt new features that become part of the HTML standard. It is a browser that supports best practices, and it is a browser that is very friendly to the web design community. And so that's why a lot of developers use Chrome as a way to experiment with some of the newer features that are coming out. In HTML5, there is more support for audio, better support for video, and better support for gaming engines, as well as 3D support. So we have four things that I'd like to quickly demonstrate here. Now, there are other features as well. There are some really neat things that you can do with HTML5, and I'll add those at the end of this video. But for now, I want to just take you through a couple of the things that can be done. One of the games that I'd like to demonstrate is something that I could find by doing a search for audio to see what's working with Chrome audio experiments. And I wanted to show you this particular one because I think that audio is an underutilized aspect of web design and development for very good reason, but there are definitely things that can be done with audio that are way beyond what you might think a browser can do. So a video that I'd like to show you is the video for Pieces Together by Ben Ross. And this is a really neat use of technology. It's an interactive video experiment, and let's take a look at it here. When I click on this, you can see it loading up. It has social links on the side. It has various links that you can use here. But once we load this thing up and click play, then we are taken into this experience.
I felt no evil. I felt no pain. The day the four walls came crashing in.
And now what I can do with this is just click and drag and throw these little bits around. And you get a really interesting interactive experience. It's unlike any other music video that you might have experienced before. And all of this is based on things that are happening inside of the browser. So all of these pieces, you can actually start to try and rebuild his face and all of these things, and they're going to move around a little bit on you. It's a really fun way to play around with the song and play around with the video. So if you're interested in any of this code, there's another way that you can look at the code that's behind any website. We're kind of stuck. This video is sort of part of a Chrome experiment. The code, if we go back, the code is really not available for this on this website. I bet you if we took a look on GitHub, we might be able to find it, but it's really hard to say what's going to be visible here. But here's the best part of the web. Anything that you can see through your web browser, you can pull down from a website and start to dissect on your own. And one of the ways you can do that is through Google Chrome's inspector, which is available through Command Option I. And so when I hold down Command Option I can see all of the code that is used to put together this particular website. I'm seeing some of these little bits. Video, width 640, height 360, ID screen. Okay, so this is a video container, and it's going to actually stay the same size no matter how big or small I make this browser window. It's going to stay right here. So when I click play, you can see all of these things happening right as this thing is moving. So you can get a sense for what the code is actually doing. Another technology that might be of interest to you is a technology called WebRTC, or Web Real-Time Client. And what I've done on here is I've just gone to Chrome Experiments and done a quick search for WebRTC, all one word. And I want to take a look at a couple of experiments that have made some pretty big impact on the web community. The first is CubeSlam. And it's this really interesting experiment that allows you to play essentially 3D Pong in a real-time environment inside the web browser. Now, this is difficult to demo because it is a real-time experiment where you have a player and a second player, and you have to communicate in real time to work with this. But everything is done through the web, so it's a really fun experiment. And if you and one of your office mates are sitting around not doing anything someday, maybe give CubeSlam a try and see how an WebRTC setup would work. And then you can start to put your creative caps on and think of how you might be able to use real-time clients to do things in your own websites. One of the other appealing things about WebRTC is that it is the technology that drives things like Google Hangouts, the types of things that you can do in real time through Google's own technologies are things you can just as easily think about implementing on your side of the world. Now, the one experiment that I do want to demo is this little responsive typography experiment that I think is really, really clever, where you can be captured with the webcam. And so what it does, it will detect your face using the webcam. And so I'm going to allow this webcam to capture me. So here I am, and you can see that it is capturing my head inside of a box. And so I can move my head around and move in and out. And as I move my head in, the text gets smaller. As I move my head away, the text gets larger. And so this has a lot of applicability to things like accessibility. People who are having difficulty reading, if they start to lean in, perhaps you make the text a little bit larger for them by default. But this is really nice that it responds to my own interactions as I'm looking through these things. So I'll click on real time and try allow again. And we can see, so now it has brought me in, and you can see the mathematics that are going on behind this. And as I move my head forward or backwards, it's actually increasing the size of the text in response to my face motion. So cool stuff, right? I mean, this type of technology is moving forward whether we're on board with it or not. So one of the fun things you can do is to go right back into CodePen and just go ahead and go into CodePen and do a quick little search over here, and you can see WebRTC, and you can see some of the pens that people have been working with on this. And so if I go to Get User Media API example, this is the code that would be used for this. So if I click allow, here, when it asks me to use the camera, there I am right here, and I'm in a nice little window here, and it's the same exact technology. It's this WebRTC, and here we are. You can see all of the code behind this right now. You have your container, you have your video CSS, you have your hover CSS. If I hover over this, you can see that when I mouse over it, it puts me back to regular position. If I mouse away from it, it zooms me in and fades me out and darkens me a little bit, and I can start to play around with all of these things in here. So if I wanted to make the rotation a little bit more pronounced, I could do rotate to 45 degrees. It's going to refresh this browser experience. I'm going to need to re-enable my camera. But once I do that, it should pick me up. I might need to refresh this a little bit. Let me go ahead and reload this and allow this. And some of these things are a little bit tricky, but there I am at 45-degree angle. But if I mouse over, I'm back to a regular angle here. So this is really a lot of fun to play around with. If I want to gray this out even further, it's going to refresh me again. I'll click allow. Let's see if it goes. And you could spend hours doing this stuff. I mean, I think in many ways I do spend hours just sort of playing around with code and thinking about how it can make things a little bit different on the web. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me play and get a chance to go in here and work with this stuff yourself. And by all means, please join me in the discussion. Let's reset myself. Please join me in the discussion so that you can continue to learn about these open source resources and the types of things that you can mess with online. Well, I hope you had fun following along with some of these experiments. As I mentioned, the web is an awfully fun place to start to develop, and we're seeing a lot of advancement in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as our baseline languages, and the types of things that developers have been able to put together on top of it. And so with that, I wanted to just leave you with a very quick little demo of something that brings all this together. This is not mine. This is a pen by Lovro Marisik, and I'm going to allow my webcam. And what this is a little web photo booth. And so you can just go in and snap some pictures, and here we go. It counts down, 3, 2, 1, smile. There's another one. And do another one. Great. And a third one. I'll do thumbs up. There we go. And so now, once I have that, I can just click on download my photo strip, and those are my 3 pictures. And so this is going to come in as an image. I can just drag this over to my desktop or save this image out into a location, and there I go. I have a set of 3 images that I can now play around with and have for my own. And all of that is done right through the browser, through HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and not a bit more of anything else to invest in. So I hope you enjoyed this walk through these different technologies, and I can't wait to discuss these and many more issues in the discussion area.